Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Big Ten Talk. I am super excited this week because we have on Scary Alvarez, who is a Wisconsin fan. I've actually been trying to get in touch with Wisconsin fans because I just feel like there's a lot to talk about in terms of the Big Ten and their program as a whole. So I'm super excited about this week. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing tonight?
Doing okay, about as good as you can be doing after a 24-point road loss to Alabama. And yeah, as far as Wisconsin fans, there are probably fewer Wisconsin fans that want to talk about the Badgers than there maybe were a couple years ago. But I'm happy to discuss the state of the program and anything else you want to get into.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I know it's not always super fun or exciting to talk about your team the day after a loss. So I actually really admire that you are here and I really appreciate it too. I respect it. But before we kind of get into Wisconsin football and the Big Ten football in general, I want to hear more about what you do. So you have your own podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, and basically just kind of long view. I hopped on Twitter back in late 2014 after the Gary Anderson to Paul Christ coaching change. I always felt like I had a little bit of snark and some opinions to give, and I thought it'd be kind of a fun to do a parody account with Alvarez, who I've always long admired as a long suffering, then very happy and very satisfied, now suffering again Wisconsin fan. Um, and went from there, and then it was probably summerish of 2023, like everyone does, grab the podcast, and because I knew through my handles I could get some good guests on, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, sometimes the audiences are bigger than others, but I'm never lacking for something to say about the Wisconsin various sports programs. We do hockey, we do basketball, of course. I remember the Ducks. Ducks gave us a bit of a shiv in the eye there at the Kohl Center this year in a game. But two really good programs, obviously. But yeah, it's been fun. I do hockey as well, and also a lot of women's sports, volleyball, women's hockey, and just kind of keep it as lively as possible. But football, I have a feeling, is what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm ready, standing by.
Yes, we will be talking about football. And kind of that's a really good segue to talk about the program. And we can start with the game yesterday. But I kind of just want to hear your thoughts in terms of before the season began, were you incredibly optimistic or were you a little worried about such a challenging schedule? And what were your thoughts before the season and how are things shaping up for you like week three?
Yeah, I mean, before the season, of course, I was enjoying being undefeated, as
Right. It's
anyone
always
would.
super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, but like most Wisconsin fans who have been paying attention, there was a little more optimism this year, I think. And it's not just the copium that people have, even like Purdue fans had last season. It's not like that at all. I mean, there were tangible reasons for Wisconsin fans to feel better. Jeff Grimes being the primary one. And this is not the bury Phil Longo in a dumpster show, but that was not a good fit. Phil had some success, had some other stops down in Mississippi and also in North Carolina. Bad fit for Wisconsin, and that's on Luke Fickell. I mean, that was Fickell's call, and he would be the first one to tell you it was a mistake. But getting back to sort of quote unquote Wisconsin football, having a good run pass balance with Grimes, who showed he was a two-time Royals Award finalist at two different schools, once at BYU, once at Baylor. Like many assistants, not every year was as good as every other year, but we welcomed him with open arms as a return to form kind of guy. And you can never get too much information from fall camp because it's
Yeah.
you're playing yourself.
Right.
But by all indications, for people who know football, they can see how things are working, how things are progressing. People were relatively optimistic coming into the season, but the elephant in the room, and you already mentioned it, Emily, was the schedule. And
Right.
I've never been a big, I'm whining about my schedule. Wisconsin's schedule this year, though, in fairness, is so much above any other Big Ten team, and this has been
This is
borne
true.
out both in the FPI with ESPN or just a number of independent bloggers and statistical analysts from MIT. It by far and away the hardest schedule of the Big Ten, and one of the top five hardest schedules in the country. It's like SEC teams in Wisconsin. You never want to be like in that grouping,
Right.
but it is what it is. And unlike all but three teams in the history of the Big Ten, they had agreed some time ago to play down in Tuscaloosa. You don't see that very often. You don't see Ohio State down there or Michigan down there, and those are teams that tend to play big games. So we knew this was going to be a challenge coming in. We knew the season was going to be a challenge generally, and there's still many challenges out there. Not the least of which is a game in Eugene coming up in that hellish October stretch. Got to play in Bloomington, which used to be a pushover, not anymore. Even though Signetti was mad that we're not an FCS team. Got to play in Ann Arbor. Never fun to play Michigan on the road. You got Iowa at home, Illinois at home, Ohio State at home. This is unbelievable. I can't like. This is a year we would have liked to have UCLA. Well, we got Oregon twice in the first 2 years and no UCLA. So it's the luck of the draw sometimes. And it sounds like I'm whining. I'm really not whining. I'm just trying to orient you in the mindset of Wisconsin fans when you hear many of them saying, hopefully things go well, we improve a ton and win 6 or 7 games. That is something that would have sounded crazy 5-6 years ago, thinking being a bowl team is a huge accomplishment, but against the backdrop of this schedule, with this kind of like slow rebuild we're trying to do from the way things were a few years ago, I would take 6 wins in a heartbeat right now.
Yeah. I've mentioned it a few times on this segment that Wisconsin has arguably one of the toughest schedules in college football. And you guys really, I mean, obviously week 3, you guys are just getting into it. So kind of reflecting on week 3 and going down to Tuscaloosa and playing Alabama. I know you guys lost, but was there anything about that game that you walked away from feeling a little bit optimistic about?
I'm glad you've given me 36 hours or almost 36 hours to ruminate over that. I did a podcast probably a little too quick after. I got a little emotional, but I'm a pretty steady hand here. I don't think any Wisconsin fan who is being honest with themselves was predicting a win in that game.
Right.
The fact that Alabama loses and Ryan Denny once every 3 1/3 seasons is troubling enough. And yes, I understand it's Kellen DeBoer, but this guy was coach of the year in college football 2 years ago. Had his team in the championship game. This isn't some slug they got 7-11. So yes, losing to the team they lost to early in the season was not ideal, but I think we're going to see a very good Alabama team. So I came in with eyes wide open. I did not think this was going to be a Wisconsin win. Of course, I high in the skied it like any good podcaster would, how a Wisconsin win could happen. And I stand by what I said, but I wasn't predicting Wisconsin win. Yeah. Did I think that anything came out of that good? One thing, and this is something that Wisconsin fans have noticed who are paying attention, that front seven's pretty good. Alabama wasn't running on the seat. They didn't have to. And that's a luxury of having someone as good as Ty Simpson and throwing pitch and catch to Ryan Williams all day. But holding Bama in Tuscaloosa to 72 yards rushing, a 3.5 per carry, that's an accomplishment. And that translates to the Big Ten. That will translate. You're going to face a lot of teams who may be good, but there are going to be very few teams. I think the Ducks and Buckeyes might be the only two I'd have in the list that have talent on par with Alabama. So you're not going to have these all-world 5-star guys beating you every week. It's going to come down to toughness. But I do think the front seven is the takeaway. I guess, the kick return. I hate to pick I can count on one hand the number of plays I really liked in that game, but the Vinny Anthony, that was a very nice return. Wisconsin they did have one against Oregon back in that 2020 Rose Bowl. Yeah. But this is the first one since then. But
wow. Okay, I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, it's not, special teams have not been their bailiwick, but that's about it. I'm not saying everything else was horrible, but hey, here we are. They gave up almost 400 yards passing. I think Simpson is going to end up being a Heisman candidate this year. I think he got a little bit of a bad rap because of that loss early on, but he's a really talented kid. I didn't check his rivals thing. Is he a 5-star? Probably. But they have all kinds of weapons. They hit you everywhere. So I guess looking back in hindsight, there isn't a lot about that game that really shocks me. The spread was, I believe it was 22.5 at kickoff. It was a 24-point game. It was never really close. It was never really a total mauling. Wisconsin was always fighting, but they average about I think with the final yardage was 450 to 200 roughly. It's not great, but it's about what you might expect for an okay to decent Wisconsin team playing a potentially elite Alabama team up there in Bryant Denny.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's about it, guys. I don't know. I mean, I'm not happy. I was very disappointed with how it went because you, in your heart of hearts, you're so hoping
Yeah.
they're going to do something special. And when it comes pretty clear by the second quarter, Alabama's going to win that game, it was a bit of a downer.
Right. Yes. I understand. I get that. And is your hope that Wisconsin just is like, the least they accomplish bowl eligibility? Is that what you're kind of like hoping and grasping for the season?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
look, they play Maryland,
Right.
which is not regarded as a particularly good team. They've been horrible, but they have a decent team. They have some good quarterback, transfer portal guy. That's kind of their season right now. We kind of go week to week at this point. You can look
Yeah.
ahead to October and say we have Iowa, Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan, and need to change your pants, or you can just say what's the next game in front of us. It's
Yeah.
a winnable home game against a decent team who's looked pretty good in their first three games. Take care of Maryland and move on. And that's all you can
Right.
do at this point. You know, but I kind of alluded to this earlier. Imagining 5 years ago, like after that Oregon Rose Bowl in 2020,
Yeah.
that there'll be a time in the future because we have Graham Mertz coming up, and we have just all these. I'm thinking about 2020 Wisconsin. We have things are going great. We just won 2 New Year's Six Bowls in 3 years, and then playing the
Yeah.
Rose Bowl the next year. Won an Orange Bowl over Miami. Won a Cotton Bowl. Things are great. Paul Christ is the maestro, and then COVID and NIL and the transfer portal and all these just weird things that disproportionately affected Wisconsin's program as it was at that time all happened. And now we're at a point where we didn't realize we had a rebuild, but we did when Fickle came in. And I don't think Fickle even understood how big the rebuild was. And there was a cultural fit issue with some of these guys. And yeah, we're at a point where with this particular schedule, if we had Minnesota's schedule or Indiana's schedule, I wouldn't say 6 wins is the goal. I would say 8 wins or 9 wins, but they don't have those
Yeah.
schedules. Schedule we have is what we have. And yeah, 6 wins would be an accomplishment. I don't, it sounds crazy to say that, but it's true. I'm sorry. We're probably not going to go beat Oregon up in Oregon. It's just the way it is. We had our chance last year, Emily, with
That was
Wisconsin.
a close
If
game.
Wisconsin,
Yeah.
if
That
Wisconsin wouldn't
was
have wouldn't have the
felt like
worst
a tough
quarterback
bowl
in
for you.
yeah, if we wouldn't have the worst quarterback arguably in major in Power Four, we probably would have gotten that one done. And it's
Yeah.
just that was our big chance, and that was that. But I don't think it's going to be that way this year. But to kind of answer your question in a roundabout way, yeah, 6 wins would feel good. Getting to it back in the bowl system, even if it's like the tackle box bowl or the mushroom bowl. I don't even know what they call them anymore. It would be okay. And getting that extra month of
Right.
practice, and things will be good.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And since you mentioned it a couple of times, I had to ask you, Oregon and Wisconsin do have a playing history and a rather entertaining one. Where have you made it to both Rose Bowls, like 2010 and 2020, or were you just at 2020?
Well, actual Barry Alvarez was at the earlier one, but yeah, the Russell Wilson Rose Bowl. I still say we had another second on that clock, but if you remember how that broke out, you're I don't know how old you are. You're younger. You might have been much younger back then, but I remember that one and thinking Oregon's just a bad matchup for that team. That was a very good Wisconsin team. The offense
Yeah.
was probably the best Wisconsin offense in the history of the program, but they just so happened to have probably their most average defense in that whole 10-year period, probably between 2010 and 2020. And it was a bad matchup, and Oregon just had so much speed and a real up-tempo game that didn't translate, didn't mesh well. Wisconsin had not seen a team like that all season. And, that was a tough one. Like apparently I thought I had gotten over it, but apparently I'm still sticking to 2011, 2012 down in Pasadena. But uh, I was at the 2020 Rose Bowl, and that was just a fantastic game. I
It
mean,
was great.
two very evenly matched teams, slightly different style, but it was a Wisconsin speed play, a long kick return that really set the tone for that game. And Wisconsin did a really good job on Herbert almost all the game. And as we talked off camera before, we had an unusual fumble there right at the end and gave Justin
Yeah,
Herbert just enough time to break our hearts. And he
right.
did. And that was a real tough one. For some reason, it was in kind of a pro Oregon part of the Rose Bowl. It was a very evenly split crowd, I thought. It was about 50-50, but I was really getting it from all sides from the Oregon fan base. And I was thinking after the game, they were gonna say, "Hey, good game, Badgers," and give me a hug. And this one guy. I'm not saying he's representative of the entire fan base, but this one guy just got in my face. It was just like suck it, like those pro wrestlers. It was just such a horrible memory. I was just like, I'm gonna walk
Oh
away from this. But
gosh, that is a
overall, though, yeah, it was fine. It's not represent. We have dipshits in our press where we have tough ones in our fan base too. And I thought the Oregon fans generally were very very cool and represented their school well at that game.
well, good. I mean, I'm super jealous you made it to that Rose Bowl. I did not make it to that one. I made it to the 2015 one against Florida State. But I didn't make
Okay,
it
yeah,
back to which was obviously a great game, but I didn't make it back to the 2020 Rose Bowl with Herbert. But I remember like in the second quarter being really fed up with that game. And I was like in and out of the room and like I was paying attention but not paying attention. But then like the second half and especially the fourth quarter, I was like, God, I should have been locked in like this entire time. Like now I'm like really locked in because it was such an entertaining but also fast and chaotic series of events that took place for it to be the final score, obviously, of the
yeah,
game.
yeah. It was fun, and I remember saying to the person I was there with, when Wisconsin went up 27-21, I go, six isn't going to be enough, guys. I just had to feel like you just knew giving Herbert the ball one more time, but then Wisconsin they got the punt and they got the ball back. I'm like, run
Yeah.
the clock out. Let's Big Ten these guys. This was of course before
Right.
Oregon was I gleam in the Big Ten's eye, and yeah, just a real uncharacteristic fumble by a pretty sure-handed receiver, and that just gave Herbert enough time and. It just everyone is. I believe there was a personal foul on a Wisconsin defensive back in the end zone. I remember thinking, that's not cool, but he felt the exact same way that every single we're so frustrated because it was so close against such
Yeah.
a high quality team and a very well coached team as well. And that one will stick with you. And little did we know that was the sort of the end of the Wisconsin as a powerhouse team for the foreseeable future. And here we are.
I know that's actually a really fascinating way to think about it because, yeah, you would not have walked away from that game thinking that that was like the end of a chapter for Wisconsin, you know?
No, I didn't. I definitely didn't think that. And we had Graham.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted Graham Mertz to we knew he was going to, and it was going to be a quarterback competition. Jack Cohn, who started the Rose Bowl for Wisconsin, had a really nice season that year, got us into the Big Ten championship game.
Right.
Um, he was kind of became an afterthought for a fan base, and he was one of he was a better than average Wisconsin quarterback. It's not known as QB. He was not Russell Wilson, but he was a really, really good guy who could beat you with his God. To have Jack Cohn right now it would be an awesome problem to have. But Mertz, in their defense, he was the biggest quarterback recruit in Wisconsin history in terms of his stars and his rankings, and he looked the part. It's such a confident, likable kid, and came in just and through COVID, and he had a really bad case of COVID. I'm not like I'm like hipping this or something, but he was down pretty bad. He was never himself that season. His quarterback coach ended up leaving halfway through the season because he was sick, and that season just kind of turned into a disaster. I mean, yes, Wisconsin won a bowl game, and I think they won 7 or 8 games that year, but it just wasn't quite the same, and then it never was the same again. It just they never found that feeling, and then things changed, and Chris kind of I don't think the game passed him by, but he just didn't want to be a part of this. I don't think this NIL transfer portal
Yeah.
era where you had to be a CEO instead of doing football.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was that. And then, of course, everyone thought Fickle was program savior with
Right.
good reason. I mean, this was the National Coach of the Year 1 year before. And I'm not saying I do think he's a good coach. I do think he still has the coaching chops, but there have been some mistakes that he made, like hiring Phil Longo and some things that were unforced errors. It's easier in hindsight, of course, to look at those things now, but
Yeah.
I do think if given the time, there's potential there for him to make this work like he wants to. The question is, does he have the time? We'll see.
Right. I think you have an incredibly refreshing take on Wisconsin. I mean, I know you told me you're not a homer, and I can appreciate that. But you do. You have wealth of knowledge, and I feel like you have really good self-awareness in terms of where how you're articulating your thoughts. But you do have a very refreshing standpoint on Wisconsin as a whole.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't, I mentioned my podcast and I kind of have a big presence on Wisconsin Twitter or
Hmm.
X, whatever the kids are called these days. But there are a lot of, and it's been increasing ever since Fickle took over. It's
Right.
that sort of anti bandwagon has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year. To now, it's like probably the majority of fans are not in on this guy, and it's been kind of tough to kind of just try and keep calm and rational, not to get. I'm never going to be like preseason. Oh, this is Wisconsin's year. They're gonna win 10 games and shock the world. That's never been my style.
Yeah.
But it's getting a little harder and harder to just stay rational and be like, for this reason, give him this number of years. Situation is different. They can't spend the money that Oregon has. Phil Knight is not an alumni. They don't spend the money that Ohio State has. They don't have an incredible. They don't have billions in the coffers to just go and buy the best guy in the portal every year. It's a different playing field. It's weird. It's almost like you thought when the rules were lifted on paying players and NIL and stuff, that was supposed to be the great equalizer.
It
And
was.
unfortunately, whereas some programs like BYU, for example, have manifested in that and thrived in that system, others who maybe don't have the same amount of money to spend, the same amount of boosters who are willing to put the money in, like Wisconsin is just one example, but there's several out there, have actually found themselves further behind teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon talent wise than they were before this happened, which is just it makes me wonder about the future of the game a little bit. I think there has to be some legislation that it gets realistic. I'm not sure if it's a salary cap or something. I don't begrudge someone having rich alumni. That's cool. I mean, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you all having Uncle Phil. But like in terms of the competitiveness of the Big Ten, when year after year after year, you're going to have Ohio State and Oregon and maybe another team up there. Penn State, maybe they're pretty spendy over there, but it's like fighting for scraps after that. It's going to be like that every year, guys. I don't know. Like maybe every year they can rotate. Indiana's going to be the fun team. Then maybe this year Illinois is going to be the fun team that spoils the party. Then maybe Michigan State gets back, or heaven forbid Wisconsin gets back in that mix someday. But
Right.
I'm just I've been more bullish on the competitive balance of college football in the past, certainly going forward. I know you're kind of in the haves, not the have-nots right now,
Right.
but that's just I'm giving you a Wisconsin perspective from kind of like the middle class on how this looks to a team trying to build the program up again with incredible headwinds.
Yeah, no, I think that's incredibly insightful too, because it takes up so much conversation and discourse in regard to college football that it's interesting and it's important to hear the different perspectives to really understand how this has impacted the game and what is worrisome for programs who are not in that tier of spending money the way that these bigger programs like Ohio State and Texas and Michigan are. So, I kind of want to segue off of that because you reminded me of this. But how this is obviously year two of four new teams being in the Big Ten. Were you receptive to that, or were you pretty against Oregon, UW, USC, and UCLA joining the conference?
I think I made some good natured jokes about it, but I liked it for the athletic competitive balance. I had no problem with it
Right.
at all. Of course, my team is not the one having to travel like those teams are. And I will say, full disclosure, I've kind of clowned like Mick Cronin, for example, at UCLA.
Right.
It's not his decision whether they join the Big Ten or not, but like it got to a little bit of like the whining over and over and over. It's like, Mick, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Go talk to your regents then at the school or trustees who voted to join the Big Ten. This is nothing
Yeah.
new. You are going to be traveling, and I know Oregon has the same exact geography issue that UCLA does. It's just the way it is because you get a
Yeah.
gigantic, massive paycheck for being a part of this conference. That's just the way it goes. I kind of, being a huge fan of the old Pac-12 big or Pac-10 when I was younger, but Big Ten
Right.
rivalry. I've always loved those matchups. I've always loved the games when Wisconsin would play teams like USC or Oregon or Washington. It's just such a cool like I love that geography thing and the different styles and the fact that y'all, kick off at 9 or 10 a.m. are my time.
Yeah.
It's just these different kind of worlds meeting. And frankly, I thought, given, and this is no knock on the Big Ten teams that were added from the Pac-12, but I always had Cal Berkeley and Stanford circled as Big Ten members. The Big Ten thinks very highly of its academics.
Yeah.
We like to talk about it. We're like, people who don't want to be stuffy and be Ivy League people, you just go to the Big Ten, you get the same education, right?
Right.
LOL. But, except for cool
Yeah.
football. But so I was a little surprised when the ACC grabbed them. It's even a bigger geographical anomaly than
Absolutely.
in the Big Ten. But yeah, I kind of to roundabout answer your question, and I really do think the ink is not dry. I don't think I'm, a prophet here. I think people know this is going to happen. I do not think the Big Ten is going to end up as an 18-team league. I think it's going to just keep growing and growing until it's probably just a couple of conferences, North and South. I don't like that aspect of it, but I do love like Wisconsin going to USC to play basketball. I just think that's so cool. They did this to USC. It's fun. It's like something you don't
Yeah.
get unless you're in a preseason tournament or you're seeing them in March. And I love that added fun of, and maybe you don't know as much about those teams and you don't have the same rivalries with them. So you're kind of
Right.
discovering it. But I'd say maybe even more so in basketball and football. Now, getting back to what I said, the downside is having to play Washington and Oregon this year, or having to play Oregon and USC last year, and
Yeah.
not getting to draw a historically bad UCLA team. Sometimes those are the breaks. But
Right.
the general tenor of playing Pac-12 ex-Pac-12 teams, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I do. I understand that. I think that was one of my first thoughts when, news broke, or even prior to news breaking, and just conversations taking place about these four teams joining the Big Ten. It's like it opens you up to all of these different matchups. And I thought that was incredibly cool because there is so much history and tradition rooted in the Big Ten that it was like exciting to be a part of that. But you alluded to this a little bit in your answer just now, but yeah, there's an ongoing conversation about other teams being added to the conference. Are there particular teams that you would like to see join the Big Ten, or are you pretty much up for anybody coming?
Yeah, I'm not. I want to say I'm up for anyone. I don't want to reject anyone out of hand, but I do. And again, it sounds snobbish, but it's not. It isn't snobbish. But I do want there to be an academic fit. So you're not. There's certain
Yeah.
teams that might be in the Big 12, for example, that you would not grab. I'm sorry. I mean, and I always looked at Texas as a natural. If we're going to expand the boundaries of the Big Ten, I thought the Longhorns were going to be, and Big Ten got outflanked by the SEC. Simple as that. Longhorns
Yeah.
would have been a great Big Ten team if we're going to go inter parts of the country.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think just any old team. And as I said earlier, I know they're in a conference now, but when the ACC breaks up, I do think, and maybe even Duke too. God, I think about the basketball effects of that. But in North Carolina, so like a North Carolina, Duke.
I think
Uh,
Virginia's been part of those
yeah,
conversations as well.
Virginia. Yes, that's a great point. Virginia, Duke, North Carolina, Berkeley,
Right.
and Stanford.
Stanford.
If we're doing a draft, like a fantasy draft, like those are the types of teams I would love to add to a growing Big Ten. Uh, like someone said, Miami. I don't want Miami. I hate the Miami. That's my one. Hey, there you go. They're y'all scoring a lot of points this year. That's good to see. Um, I hate the Miami Hurricanes. I have hated the Miami Hurricanes. They're kind of like a school where like your fan base, you just run over the 7-Eleven. And like that's your fan base. I feel like it's not. Hey, I don't care if they hate me. They already hate me because they went in and tampered with one of our top returning players and
Yeah.
basically like they tampered and we sued him and we're going to win a bunch of money and that's fine. But it just underscores the problem. And I just think it's a skeevy program it long has. I don't get you in trouble with the Canes, but that is a team that I've heard mentioned about the Big Ten. We do not want the Canes. Seminoles were good. Those are Southern teams. Those are SEC teams. I really
Yeah.
think that. Like, and I do think that uh, those would not be at the top of my list. But how about you? Like, what? Obviously you're a bona fide Big Ten person now? I mean, is there any other team you're looking to add? Certainly would be Oregon State. Is that something like some old rivalry you're going to sneak it back in, or
No, I don't really miss, like, I don't really feel the need for them to be in the Big Ten. And I think they fit the Pac 12 and kind of the Pac 12 building in the way that it is.
yeah,
That makes sense. The rivalry between Oregon and Washington is one that I've always felt runs a little deeper
yeah.
and is a bit more balanced, especially recently. So there's just like it's hyped up more. There's like more fuel to the fire.
You
So
you've been to
yeah, I don't.
Corvallis. You've been to Corvallis, right?
Yeah,
That's a one-timer place. You
yeah,
should never have to go to Corvallis more than one time in your life. It is a place where I have to believe the people who live there are people either who were moved there unwillingly through a job
right.
or they just never got out.
Yeah.
That's my take on Corvallis.
I mean, I'm not a big fan. I remember this was years ago, and my brother was still in high school, but he wanted to go tour it as a possibility for where he ended up going to college. And he wanted me to go on the tour with him. So I got to see it from like a different standpoint, but I was just like, it's okay.
Yeah, you're being kind. You're being kind, I
All
think.
right. Yeah,
Look,
I guess I am. I'm probably
my
being
goal is
kind.
not to. I mean, my goal is not to make a bunch of Oregon State fans mad at me. I'm sure there
Yeah,
are loving people with good families, and they want just
right.
try and do their best. The Badgers had a game out there in 2012, and people couldn't wait to never go back. Is what is I
Yeah.
think how they put it. Just a and you may not remember this. A kind of an odd bird named Gary Anderson was at
Yeah.
Utah State, and for some reason Barry Alvarez hired him at Wisconsin. He was a good, I mean, by all accounts, an objectively good coach, but it was an odd fit. And he came to Wisconsin and did a serviceable job for a couple of years. I think he was recruiting like 250-pound offensive linemen at some point, but it was not going to be a long term fit. And he just up and left and went back to Oregon State. And Wisconsin fans simply could not fathom someone doing that. And it wasn't
Yeah.
an arrogance. It's just more like you're going to a worse team but Madison's a gorgeous place. I'm sure you've ever been there.
Right. I've
But
heard
but
that. I want to go to
it,
Madison so badly.
it's
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 like,
a it, yeah. Just
yeah,
don't go like I say with recruits. Don't go like maybe in January or
right.
February or March.
Right.
It's a little like you ever been to Madison in June? Bingo. Or like October with I think the game Oregon went down there. It was still pretty nice then, and
Yeah.
it's a great city. But I don't know. I'm running a field now, but yeah, that's not a fit that I would love for the Big Ten.
Right.
Oregon
So
State.
someone actually had asked me this recently, like what teams would I like in the Big Ten? And there's a part of me that selfishly wants no other teams because now that I'm in the
Yeah.
Big Ten, like now that Oregon's in the Big Ten, I'm
Pull the
like
ladder up.
content.
Yeah.
Like we're good. Like we have our conference. This is good. But obviously that's just not the general landscape of college football. It's a constant conversation about what teams are going to go where. And you alluded to this a little bit. There's going to eventually just be like two mega conferences, right? Like
Wait, so
eventually everyone's going to sift into either the SEC or the Big Ten, and that's going to be that. But I do like the schools that you listed. I like the idea of some ACC schools. Like I think Duke would actually make things with basketball really interesting, as would UNC. And then like the Virginia, Berkeley, and Stanford, that would be an interesting, addition to the conference. I'm not
agreed. Yeah.
sure if there's other teams because every other team that I'm thinking of feels more SEC.
Yeah. I've heard Missouri. I've heard Oklahoma. Those just
Yeah.
I don't think those are cultural fits. It sounds
And I
really
guess we
snobby.
have to
Yeah.
consider the Big 12. I wasn't really thinking about the
Yeah.
Big 12, but that's where it gets a little dicey because I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure what Big 12 teams would be a good fit in the Big 10.
Maybe
Maybe like
Kansas,
a
Iowa State.
Baylor.
Yeah, I don't know about Baylor. I think Baylor is about as Baylor is such an and this doesn't have to be a Baylor show, right? I lived down in Austin, Texas, so I know
Okay.
Waco pretty well.
Okay.
Don't hang out there much. But
Yeah.
that is a super odd fit. Baylor is a perfect Big 12 team.
That's what it is. A
That,
lot of the
that
Big
is
12
just
teams seem like
yeah.
really good Big 12 teams.
That is not a Big Ten fit. It may not even be a good SEC fit. Whereas Texas
Exactly.
is a Texas is a great SEC fit. I'm in Austin. By the way, I'm going to say this is not. You got me on as a Wisconsin guy. I'm telling you, Texas is going to have a rough year. I'm just
No.
that the Manning kid is injured or something, and he may be the worst quarterback in the SEC right now. That they've lost just so many guys. Thank you,
Yeah.
Matthew Golden up in Green Bay. And I think Texas is take the under on the Texas wins is my that is a gambling show, but that's my
Yeah, that's
piece
a
of
good
advice.
side note. A good
Yeah.
side note for this segment for sure. But yeah, like all the Big 12 teams just seem like really good Big 12 teams.
Yeah, it's a conference I kind of like. I mean, I kind of
Yeah.
like in terms
It's
of just
fun.
as a football fan,
Yeah.
getting that Texas Tech Baylor game. That's fun. That's a real
Yeah.
regional old hatred from the old, old conference they used to be. Um, and frankly, it's fun football to watch. But do I want an Arizona State Wisconsin game? I just don't. It does. That's not my thing. I don't know. I don't think it's a good fit.
Yeah. I just can't really think of Big 12 teams that would be a good fit in either the Big 10 or the SEC. So it is, but it's a fun conference. They have chaos, they have excitement, fun matchups. Like you said, as a football fan, I really enjoy it. But I don't know what that merging would look like.
It's all so weird right now, and I guess we'll see how it gets. Maybe I'm being overly pessimistic by thinking it's going to be two mega conferences, but it just kind of seems like those are the tea leaves right now if you're
Right.
looking at it. But Emily, if as you said, there's this not really selfishness, but if we held on 18 teams in the Big Ten with what we have right now, I would be overjoyed with that. I think that'd be
Oh, yeah.
totally fine. I'm not pining for more teams. I'm just trying to say which draft picks do we get thinking it's going to go that direction. And if we,
Exactly.
you definitely want to get certain teams over others if you do that. Like, yeah, NC State, you can go to the SEC. We're going to take North Carolina. It's
Yeah.
just, we'll have those talks when we do it. But 18 teams is totally fine. I think having at least a few years go by when you're starting to develop some rivalries. I know it's so early with some of these former Pac-12 teams, but I would love to see a Nebraska Oregon rivalry or something. I
Yeah.
don't know how that's going to happen organically, but just and maybe we'll get a Wisconsin Oregon rivalry, and that's actually two teams that have played each other with some
Exactly.
regularity. And I just want you all to go a little easy on us in November. I'm just saying it's going to be be gentle. It's going to
Yeah.
be a potentially wounded Wisconsin team that heads up there and don't beat us by 30. I think we'll actually be okay. I think we match up okay. I think it's probably a game Oregon wins comfortably, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it'll be as bad as the Alabama game. That's my thought.
Okay. Have you been to Eugene?
I have never been to Eugene. I've been to Seattle, but I've done some research on Eugene. It seems like
Yeah.
a pretty cool little college town.
It is
Um,
cool.
Traditions. Do you live in Eugene?
No, I live almost 2 hours north in Portland.
Oh, Portland. Yeah, I've heard of
Yeah.
Portland. That's a fun place.
It is
Y'all
a
got
fun
that.
place.
You got
It
a soccer team up
is.
there. Yeah.
Yes, this is true. It's a
Blazers. Are you a
place.
Blazers fan?
I am a Blazers fan.
Okay.
Yeah, yikes, I know.
Well, you got Dame back.
I know.
Well, the
I
Bucks took him and broke him and then sent him back.
I know.
Sent him.
I like watched so many Milwaukee Bucks games in the last 2 years just to be like supportive and to see how that team does and to watch Dame, of course. And now I can go back to, I guess, not watching that many. It's an
No.
interesting transition.
Yeah, it's weird. Look, I wish Dave nothing but the best. And as a Bucks fan, I was, of course, so happy when they signed him,
Yeah,
had another title for Giannis. And it just sometimes stuff just doesn't work out, with
right.
injuries and fit and feel, and that just wasn't to be. But I'm really wish him all the best. He seems like an absolutely quality dude, and I hope he can finish his career with some happiness up there and where it's his home. I mean, he never felt quite comfortable in Milwaukee. You knew he
Right.
was a Portland guy. It's just that whole thing was weird, and it would have been worse in Miami. You think like people, are, oh, he should have gone to the Heat. That would have been such a fish out of water, strange fit, I think, for him. So I think this is just some guys. They're where they belong, is where they start, and I think that Dame's a trailblazer.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. So, after week 3, do you think we learned anything about any of the Big Ten teams? And you can start off by telling me who you think is going to finish in the top like 3 of the conference. Like, who do you have a prediction in terms of who might end up in the conference championship and win it?
Yeah, I do. I'll give you a top three.
There you
I
go. That's
do,
fine.
and excuse me if this sounds cliche, and certainly I'm not doing this to curry favor with you. I do think Oregon's going to be there in the end. I just think with their schedule and the talent on that team, it may not quite be the team they were last year, but I do think they're up there. Ohio State, I'm picking all the easy ones, but like I can't. I got to be honest with what I think. I
Yeah.
think Ohio State is going to be one of those teams that gets better as the season goes on, which is
Right.
terrifying. I hope they
Right.
get better right after Wisconsin plays them. They get like
Yeah.
hit
There
their
you
peak.
go. There you go. I think
Uh,
that's
and the Illinois Fighting Illini, I think that is they're being. I know they're ranked high, but I don't think anyone's taking them seriously. That is a
right.
legitimate Big Ten championship contender. I love what Bielema's doing down there. That is no homerism. I've detached emotionally from Brett Bielema. Trust me, anyone who knows my account knows that I probably clown on him more than anyone else, besides maybe Signetti. But
Yeah.
that they had the most returning starters on both offense and defense. Altmaier is a uh, potential first team All Big Ten quarterback. And I just think that team, I'll say this: if Illinois doesn't make the college football playoffs, I'll be surprised. How about that?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about Penn State and their success or lack of success this season?
I'm clearly sleeping on them.
Yeah.
I
No, I
like,
mean, yeah, it's a, I think I can see
yeah,
both ways. So,
yeah. I like Penn State. Look, if Penn State went back to the college football playoff, it would not be surprising. It's a
yeah.
talented team. They have a good, not elite coach. Real. I mean, just look at their backfield. I mean, they returned two guys who would be starting for any other team in the country. So, and of course, their
Right.
quarterback. I think his ceiling is pretty much what we've seen, but I would take him at Wisconsin. I mean, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Penn State wouldn't shock me. I don't think they're going to be playing for the Big Ten championship though. No, I don't. I think it's going to be some combination of Illinois, Ohio State, Oregon. I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. I understand that. Yeah, absolutely. And kind of backtracking here, I wanted to ask you this a little bit earlier, but as a Wisconsin fan, do you have like a top three of like the teams you hate the most in the Big Ten? So like I guess three.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. My
Who would
top
those
three
be?
is Minnesota, Minnesota, and Minnesota.
Okay.
Those
Yeah.
are
Fair. I could have guessed that,
if
but yeah.
anyone, yeah, anyone who has any exposure to my account knows I'm not a big PJ Fleck. I don't think there was another, and this isn't anything personal. He might be the nicest guy. I don't know the guy. This isn't.
Right.
I'm not trying to people like to burn this guy as a human being, but he is a little performative, and he's got his shtick, and he gets more accolades relative to what he has actually accomplished by a wide margin than any coach in the country. Ryan Day got more crap last year than PJ Fleck did, and they won the national championship.
Yeah.
Fleck just I call him the Big Ten's most okayest football coach because he is. He's
Right.
okay. This is his ninth year. He inherited a 9-win team. He's 3 games under 500 in Big Ten games after playing in the Big Ten West all but 1 year. The worst conference in major college, like the worst division. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So yes, but if I had to strain and find another one, yeah, I'm not a big Kurt Signetti fan at IU.
Mhm.
I just don't like the cut of his. It's not anything against Indiana, their fans. They've been kind of a loser fan, loser program for so long. Ordinarily, I would be like, I'm excited for you guys making the play,
Yeah.
but I just don't like this guy. He's such a big head. He can't get in the door. And anyone who takes Virginia off his schedule to schedule an FCS team, that
Right.
tells me like that's loser behavior. And like we're
Yeah.
down there, Wisconsin's down in Tuscaloosa playing Alabama, and Signetti's playing FCS or us, and it's just like I just don't like that competitive. And also, I'm a little sore because they're good. That's probably
Right.
part of it too. And if I had to get another one, I don't really hate any other Big Ten team. I just don't have like even Ohio State. I don't hate them. I
Yeah.
respect them.
Right.
That would be if I could pick a team to beat this year, it would be Ohio State because that would be so much fun to end
Yeah.
a losing streak that started in 2011 against them. But it's pretty much Minnesota. I mean, that's the one.
Yeah. I get that. No, I think that's understandable. Absolutely. But that's just like a fun thing I wanted to ask you in case
Yeah,
you
that's
did
that's
have
it.
you had like a three that you hated, but I can respect the Minnesota for
It's
sure.
there's I can go deep. I got plenty of hate in my heart right now, given where Wisconsin is. I could probably make a case for Nebraska. I can make a case for Iowa. I can make a case for Michigan. I've actually been rough on Michigan only because they unequivocally cheated in large portions of 2 seasons to win a national title. That to me is a problem that has been so glossed over.
Right.
And their punishment was so weak and flaccid because the NCAA doesn't want to call attention to a champion team having done something. They have a guy on the sidelines on tape talking to the defensive coordinator, now coach, and talking to the offensive coordinator during games, this low-level employee, he was giving them the plays. Let's just be honest about this, about what happened. And yeah, Michigan's a bunch of cheaters, and they didn't deserve to win a national title. I'll say it. There it is. JJ McCarthy knew the place.
Right.
He
So
knew
that would be that has
that's
to
kind of a
be.
side hate. Yeah, yeah. I just don't. I wish bad things about that program because of how it was just. And that's a tremendous university with an incredible fan base of
Yeah.
a bright football fan, like real football fans, and they're acting like that didn't happen. And I
Right.
hate to say it, I'm on Ohio State side here, guys. They cheated. They cheated in that game against Ohio State when they beat them in Columbus. It's in Ann Arbor that year. It was a fact. They cheated. Sorry.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. You have been a delight. This has been so much fun. Like I said, I'm so excited that I was able to connect with a Wisconsin fan. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and your content?
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. I'm Barry is in the dawn. Scary Alvarez over on Twitter X. I don't do Instagram. I'm too old for that stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry. I
No,
don't do TikTok. I just not, I am what I am.
I respect it.
And I'm
Yeah.
also on YouTube, the Scary Alvarez podcast. You can see that. And people say, yes, I was asked, am I as handsome in person? I hope that I am. I think we got the shades on, but we're over there on YouTube and it's obviously 99% Wisconsin content, but as we said earlier in the show, it's not just football. It stretches into basketball and volleyball. I know you'll have a good volleyball team up there up in Eugene.
Yeah.
Uh, and we touch on women's hockey, which of course we're a national powerhouse for. You guys don't have to have a team yet, but we'll take what we can get at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Emily, I really appreciate you asking me on. I know I love to gab, and this was a perfect venue for that. But
Yeah.
anyone who
No,
has
this has
any
been great. This
appreciate
has
it
been
and
awesome.
point and shout. Oh hey, little late.
Yep.
Oh, you have to watch this will be. I presume this is going to be taped and put on
Oh, yeah.
YouTube. But this was a delight. It's always fun to talk about other fan bases, and y'all have a hell of a football team up there, an incredibly talented coach, and a lot of money. That is a recipe for a continued success in the Big Ten in football. Altmaier's doing a pretty good job there at basketball too. So it's fun having Oregon in the conference. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in today. Please like the video and subscribe to keep up with all of the content that Ghost and Friends is creating. We'll be back here next week on Sunday at 8 p.m. Hope to see you there.
Appreciate it. Hey, Jeremiah Smith, I didn't have that on my bingo card. Get an Ohio State receiver props, but here we are.
There you go.